The testing room was cold and white. Una Park stood very still as the tall alien walked around her. The alien was a villain, and her name was Cora. She had silver skin and eyes that seemed to look through everything. Cora held a small device in her long fingers. She pressed it against Una's arm, then her chest, then her head. Each time, the device made a soft beeping sound. "Interesting," Cora said. Her voice was gentle, like she was talking to a child. "Your bones are quite weak, and your skin tears so easily." Una said nothing. She had been told to stay quiet during the assessment. All humans had to go through this test before they could join the Galactic Union. It had been this way for every species that wanted membership. Behind Una, Captain Taekwon watched with calm eyes. He was a tall man with gray hair at his temples and a face that rarely showed emotion. He had commanded human ships for 20 years. Now he commanded the small human team on this alien station. The station was called Harmony Ring. It floated in space like a giant wheel, home to thousands of aliens from dozens of species. Humans had arrived 6 months ago, and today was the day they would learn their place in this new world. Cora finished her scans and walked to her desk. She sat down and looked at a glowing screen filled with numbers and charts. Other Velen officials stood nearby, watching and whispering to each other. "Let me explain what we have found," Cora said. She spoke slowly, as if the humans might not understand big words. Every species in the Galactic Union receives a classification. This classification decides what roles you can serve. It is based on your physical abilities, your natural weapons, and your history of aggression. Tay nodded politely. "We understand. Good." Cora touched her screen. "We have tested your bone density. It is very low compared to most species. A Keth warrior could break your arm with 2 fingers. "I see," Tay said. "Your lifespan is also quite short. 80 to 100 years. Some of our species live for 1,000. Cora shook her head like she felt sorry for them. "You have no claws, no venom, no natural armor. Your teeth are small. Your eyes cannot see in darkness. You cannot breathe underwater or survive extreme temperatures." Una kept her face blank, but inside she wanted to smile. The Velen thought they knew everything about humans from these simple tests. "Most importantly," Cora continued, "your aggression index is remarkably low. When our ships first met yours, you did not attack. You showed no fear response. You simply talked to us." She seemed confused by this. Most species fight when they first meet strangers. It is natural instinct. But humans just wanted to communicate. Tay bowed his head slightly. "We prefer peace when possible." "Yes, exactly." Cora smiled warmly. "This is why we have reached our decision." She picked up a stamp with a pale blue color. "Humans are classified as non-combatant status." She pressed the stamp onto their official file. The blue mark glowed softly. "This means," Cora explained, "that humans will not serve in our defense fleets. You will not hold security positions. You will not carry weapons aboard Union stations or ships." Una finally spoke. "What will we do instead?" "Oh, many wonderful things." Cora seemed excited to share the good news. "Your species shows excellent care for the sick and injured. You will make fine medics. You are also good with plants and food production. We will assign you to agricultural zones. And your small fingers are perfect for delicate repair work. Maintenance duties will suit you well." She stood up and walked toward them, her silver robes flowing behind her. "You should be proud. Non-combatant species are protected by Union law. No one can force you to fight. No one can put you in danger. You will be safe here." Tay bowed again. "We are grateful for your kindness." Cora placed a hand on his shoulder. The gesture was meant to be comforting, but it felt like something else. Like someone patting a pet. The dangerous work will be done by those built for it, she said. The Keth have armor that can stop plasma fire. The Mora can read enemy minds. The Sil have venom that kills in seconds. They will protect you. We understand our place, Tay said. Over the next few weeks, the humans settled into their new roles. They were given quarters on the lower decks, far from the command centers and security zones. Yuna worked as a liaison, helping humans communicate with other species. Tay oversaw all human operations from a small office near the medical bay. Dr. Hannah Lee became the chief medical officer of Ward 7. She was a small woman with quick hands and sharp eyes. Her team included Wu Seal, a quiet man with broad shoulders who had once been a soldier back on Earth. There was also Jin Wan, who grew up in the mountains and knew how to survive with nothing but a knife. And there were others, each with their own hidden skills. In the engineering section, Hyengo learned every wire and pipe in the station. His young apprentice, Narration, memorized the locations of every power junction and emergency system. In the agricultural zone, Minji grew food for the station, while quietly mapping every air vent and chemical storage room. The other species barely noticed the humans. They were just small, fragile creatures doing simple jobs. Nothing to worry about. Nothing to fear. But Captain Tay noticed something else. He saw how the Keth guards were slow and overconfident. He saw how the station's security cameras had blind spots. He saw how the emergency systems had weaknesses that no one had bothered to fix. And he made notes. Quiet, careful notes. In his private quarters, Tay kept a locked file on his personal computer. The file was labeled Protocol 7. Every human officer knew about it, but they never spoke of it out loud. It was their secret, passed down from the first days of space travel. Humans had always known that the universe might be dangerous. They had always prepared for the worst. And they had learned, over thousands of years of history, that the best way to survive was to let others underestimate them. 3 years passed. The humans made friends with aliens from every department. They learned the station's secrets. They memorized escape routes and weak points. They shared meals and stories and laughter with their new neighbors. And they waited. Because humans knew something that the Galactic Union had never understood. Peace was not the same as weakness. Kindness was not the same as softness. And the species that smiled the most often had the sharpest teeth. They just chose not to show them. Not yet. The alarm woke Hannah from a dreamless sleep. Red lights flashed in her quarters, and a loud voice repeated the same message over and over. Emergency. All personnel to stations. Emergency. All personnel to stations. She was dressed and running within 30 seconds. In the hallway, she passed other humans doing the same. No one spoke. They had practiced for emergencies many times. Each person knew exactly where to go. Hannah reached Ward 7 just as the first explosion shook the station. The floor jumped beneath her feet. Somewhere far away, metal screamed as it tore apart. Wu was already there, helping patients out of their beds. Jin arrived a moment later, his face pale but his hands steady. 5 other nurses and medics ran in behind him. What's happening? One of the nurses asked. Hannah checked the computer terminal on the wall. The screen showed a map of the station. 3 red marks blinked on the outer ring. Breach points, she said. Someone is attacking us. Another explosion, closer this time. The lights flickered. The intercom crackled with a new voice. It was Cora, the Velen Elder, and she sounded afraid. Attention all personnel. We are under attack by Dren Raiders. Security forces are engaging the enemy. All non-combatant species must shelter in place. Repeat, shelter in place. Do not attempt to engage hostiles. Hannah looked at her team. They had 43 patients in the ward. Some were sleeping. Some were too sick to move. One was a young Mora child who had broken her leg the day before. "We need to lock down," Jin said. "Follow the protocol." But even as he spoke, heavy footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. Not the soft steps of medical staff. These were boots, hitting the floor hard and fast. Hannah pulled up the security camera feed. Her stomach turned cold. 8 figures moved through the hallway toward them. They were Drentall, muscular hunters with gray skin and black eyes. They wore dark armor and carried plasma rifles. Their mouths were full of sharp teeth, and their faces showed no mercy. The Dren were outcasts, thrown out of the Galactic Union for crimes too terrible to name. They lived in the dark spaces between stars, attacking ships and stations for food and supplies. They took no prisoners. They left no survivors. "They know we're here," Wu said quietly. He had moved to stand beside Hannah, his eyes on the screen. "They're coming straight for us." Hannah's mind raced. The security teams were on the other side of the station, fighting at the breach points. No help would come in time. The emergency bulkheads had sealed the corridors, trapping them in this section with the raiders. They had no weapons, no armor, nothing but medical supplies and their own hands. "The protocol says shelter in place," Jin repeated, but his voice had changed. It was harder now, like steel being sharpened. Wu cracked his knuckles. "I never liked that protocol." Hannah made her decision. She turned to face her team. "Listen to me. We have 43 patients who cannot defend themselves. If those raiders reach this ward, everyone dies." No one argued. No one looked away. "Wu, you served in the military. Jin, you know how to hunt. The rest of you have skills too. We're not helpless, and we're not going to hide in a corner while monsters come for our patients." She grabbed a surgical laser from the supply cabinet. It was meant for cutting through tissue during operations. In her hand, it became something else. "We have 3 minutes before they reach us," she said. "Here's what we're going to do." The plan was simple, because there was no time for anything complicated. Wu would go into the ceiling through the maintenance hatch. The corridors had access shafts running above them, used by repair crews to reach pipes and wires. He would wait there until the raiders passed beneath him. Jin found the emergency toolkit in the storage room. Inside was a heavy wrench, some cutting tools, and a long piece of metal pipe. Not much, but enough. The other nurses would stay with the patients, keeping them calm and quiet. But they also had jobs. One found the medical gas canisters used for putting patients to sleep during surgery. Another located the fire suppression system controls. Hannah positioned herself at the corner of the corridor, just out of sight from the main hallway. She held the surgical laser tight in her grip. "Kill the lights," she ordered. Jin hit the switch. The ward went dark. For a long moment, there was only silence. Hannah could hear her own heartbeat, loud and fast. She could hear the distant sounds of fighting elsewhere on the station. Plasma fire, screams, the crash of falling metal. Then she heard the footsteps again. Closer now. The Dren moved carefully, but not quietly. They were used to being the hunters, not the hunted. They expected to find frightened medics hiding under beds, begging for their lives. The first raider stepped into the ward's main corridor. His black eyes scanned the darkness. Behind him, his squad spread out, rifles raised. "Little creatures," the leader called out. His voice was rough and cruel. "We know you are here. Come out, and we will make it quick. Hide, and we will make it slow." No one answered. The Dren moved forward. They passed the first doorway, then the second. Above them, in the ceiling shaft, Wu waited. The leader stopped directly beneath the maintenance hatch. He looked around, confused. Where were the medics? Where were the screams? Wu dropped. He came down like a falling stone, silent and fast. In his hands was a fire extinguisher, heavy and solid. He swung it with all his strength. The crack of the leader's helmet, Breaking was the loudest sound in the world. Everything happened at once. Hana stepped out from her hiding spot and fired the surgical laser. The thin red beam found the neck of the second raider, slicing through the gap between his helmet and chest armor. He fell without a sound. Jin came from the opposite direction. He had wrapped his arm in a thick medical blanket for protection. When a raider turned to shoot him, he threw himself to the side, rolled, and came up with the metal pipe swinging. The blow caught the raider in the knee. The armor held, but the joint beneath it broke. The Dren were fast, but the darkness confused them. Their black eyes were made for dim light, not total darkness. They fired their rifles, but they hit walls and empty air. The humans had already moved. Gas began to fill the corridor. The nurses had opened the medical canisters. It was not enough to knock out the raiders. They were too big, too strong, but it made them slow and dizzy. 2 more Dren fell. Then another. The last 3 tried to retreat, but they did not know the station like the humans did. Jin led them down a side corridor that ended in a locked door. They had nowhere to go. Wu finished them in the dark. When the lights came back on, 8 Dren raiders lay dead on the floor. The humans stood among them, breathing hard, covered in sweat and blood that was not their own. Jin had a cut on his face. One nurse had a burned arm from a near miss. But they were alive. They were all alive. Hannah looked at her team. In their eyes, she saw fear and shock and something else. Pride. "Check the patients," she said quietly. "Make sure everyone is okay." As they moved to obey, Hana walked to the communication panel on the wall. She pressed the button to reach Captain Tay. "Ward 7 reporting," she said. 8 hostiles down. Medical wing is secure." There was a pause. Then Tay's calm voice came through the speaker. "Good work, Doctor. Protocol 7 is now active. All human personnel are authorized to engage." Hana closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them again, they were cold and hard. "Understood, Captain. What are our orders?" "Take back the station." The word spread through the station like fire through dry grass. The humans were fighting back. In the command center, Elder Korra stood before a wall of screens showing different parts of Harmony Ring. Red dots marked enemy positions. Blue dots marked friendly forces. And now, for the first time, there were green dots moving through the lower decks. "What are those?" demanded General Voss, the Keth commander of station security. He was massive, covered in natural armor plates, the color of stone. His people were born warriors, bred for battle across 1,000 generations. "Those are the humans," said a junior officer, her voice full of disbelief. They're attacking the raiders." Voss stared at the screen. "That's impossible. They're non-combatants. They have no weapons, no training." Korra watched in silence as the green dots moved through corridors and service tunnels. They were not moving randomly. They were hunting. On Deck 9, Minji Beak stood in the hydroponics bay with her team of agricultural workers. They had spent 3 years growing food for the station. They knew every plant, every chemical, every system in their section. The Dren had sent a squad of 12 raiders to secure the food supplies. They expected farmers, not fighters. Minji had other plans. "Close all the doors," she told her team. "Seal the entire deck." The emergency bulkheads slammed shut. The Dren were now trapped in a maze of growing rooms and storage areas. They tried to force the doors open, but the locks held. Then Minji opened the pesticide tanks. The chemicals they used to kill insects were not meant for breathing. In small amounts, they caused coughing and watery eyes. In large amounts, they caused death. The Dren ran, but there was nowhere safe to go. Every room filled with the same poison gas. They broke through a window into a sealed compartment, gasping for clean air. Minji was waiting at the control panel. She pressed a single button. and the air vents in that compartment opened to space. The Dren did not suffer long. In engineering, Chief Hyengo was playing a different game. The Raiders had sent their best squad to take the power core. If they controlled the station's energy, they controlled everything. But Hyen had been studying the power systems for 3 years. He knew things that the original builders had forgotten. "Watch this," he told his apprentice Nari. His old fingers danced across the control board. On Deck 4, the lights went out. Then Deck 5. Then Deck 6. A wave of darkness rolled through the station, following the Dren wherever they went. The Raiders had equipment to see in low light, but not in total darkness. They stumbled and crashed into walls. They fired at shadows and hit nothing. And in that darkness, the Keth security forces finally found their advantage. NAR, I guided them through back passages that were not on any official map. She had discovered these routes during her maintenance work. Forgotten tunnels and abandoned corridors that connected different parts of the station. "Turn left at the junction," she said into her communicator. "The enemy is 50 meters ahead, blind and confused." General Voss himself led the attack. His armored warriors crashed into the helpless raiders like a wave against sand. The battle lasted less than 2 minutes. Afterward, Voss found the young human woman waiting at the end of the corridor. She was small and thin, with dirt on her face and grease on her hands. "How did you know about these passages?" he asked. Nari shrugged. "I fixed a broken pipe here last year. Nobody told me to forget what I saw." On the command deck, Captain Tay walked calmly through the chaos. Velen officers ran back and forth, shouting orders. Mara telepaths sat in corners, their heads in their hands, overwhelmed by the fear and pain filling the station. But Tay moved like he was taking a quiet walk in a garden. He approached the main communication console and spoke to the officer there. "I need to send a message to all human personnel." The officer looked at Cora for permission. The elder nodded slowly, still watching the screens. Tay leaned toward the microphone. His voice was steady and cold, without any emotion. "All human personnel. Protocol 7 is in full effect. Engage at will. Protect the station. Protect each other. Show them who we are." The message went out to every corner of Harmony Ring, and everywhere it reached, humans began to move. In the cargo bays, dock workers used loading machines to crush raiders against walls. In the water treatment center, technicians flooded corridors and then electrified the water. In the communication hub, a young woman named Su-Yun hacked the Dren's own radio signals and filled them with lies. "Your leader is dead," she told them in perfect Dren language, which she had learned from old records, just for fun. "Your ships are destroyed. Surrender now, and you may live." Some raiders believed her. They threw down their weapons and fell to their knees. Others tried to return to their ships, only to find that the docking bay doors had been sealed by human mechanics. The tide of battle turned completely. Elder Cora watched it all with growing horror. She had studied humans for years. She had tested them, measured them, and declared them harmless. She had been so sure. How is this possible? She whispered. A young Velen aide stood beside her, staring at his tablet. "Elder, I've been looking at the human personnel files. I found something strange." "What is it?" "Many of them have backgrounds that were not in our original assessments. Military training, survival skills, combat sports. One of their nurses was a special forces soldier for 15 years before becoming a medic." Cora felt cold. "Why didn't we see this?" "We didn't look. We tested their bodies and their first contact behavior. We never asked what they could do when they were angry." The aide swallowed hard. "Elder, these creatures have a history of warfare that goes back thousands of years. They've been fighting each other and everything else on their planet since before they could write." On the screen, more green dots moved through the station. The red dots were disappearing one by one. General Voss returned to the command center, his armor stained with enemy blood. He looked at Cora with new eyes. "I owe my life to a human tonight," he said. "A small female who showed me a path I never knew existed. She saved my entire squad." Cora nodded slowly. She was beginning to understand something terrible. The humans had known all along what they were capable of. They had accepted the non-combatant label without complaint. They had spent 3 years smiling and working quietly and making friends. They had been hiding in plain sight, and now, with their backs against the wall, they had revealed their true nature. Not fragile, not weak, not helpless, dangerous, wonderfully, terrifyingly dangerous. Captain Tay stood nearby, watching the screens with quiet satisfaction. Cora turned to him, searching for words. "You planned for this," she said. It was not a question. Tay met her silver eyes. "We planned for everything, Elder. It's how we survived long enough to reach the stars." The battle for Harmony Ring continued through the night. But by the time the station's sun rose again, every Dren Raider was dead or captured. The humans had lost 11 of their own, each one mourned deeply by those who remained. But they had won, and nothing would ever be the same again. 6 months had passed as the night of blood and fire. Harmony Ring had been repaired. The holes in the hull were sealed. The damaged decks were rebuilt. Life had returned to normal, or something like it. But nothing was truly the same. In the Great Council chamber, Elder Cora stood before the assembled representatives of 12 species. In her hands, she held a document that had taken 4 months to write. Every word had been debated. Every sentence had been argued over. It was the most important piece of legislation the Galactic Union had produced in 300 years. "Fellow members of the Union," she began, "we are gathered today to address a matter of great importance: the classification of the human species." The chamber was packed. Every seat was filled. Along the walls, observers from dozens of other species watched and listened. News drones floated overhead, recording everything for broadcast across the galaxy. In the front row, Captain Tay sat with his team. Beside him were Yuna, Hana, Wu, Jin, Minji, Hyan, and Nari. They wore new uniforms, cleaner and finer than before. They had been given medals for their actions during the attack, but they wore those medals quietly, without pride or boasting. Cora continued. "When humans first joined our union, they were assessed according to our standard procedures. Based on physical measurements and behavioral observations, they were classified as a non-combatant species. This classification was considered final and permanent." She paused and looked down at the document in her hands. "We were wrong." A murmur ran through the chamber. Everyone had expected this moment, but hearing the words spoken aloud still carried weight. The events of 6 months ago proved that our assessment was incomplete. We measured bodies, but we failed to measure minds. We observed peace, but we failed to understand the choice behind it. We saw kindness, and we mistook it for helplessness. Cora looked up at the human delegation. Humanity has shown us that true strength is not always visible, that the most dangerous creatures are sometimes the ones who smile the most, that those who choose peace can still be capable of war. She raised the document. "Therefore, by unanimous vote of this council, we hereby revoke the non-combatant classification for the human species. In its place, we establish a new designation, created specifically for humanity." The chamber fell completely silent. The new classification is Conditional Apex Threat, Dormant Class. General Braun of the Keth nodded slowly. The Mora representatives exchanged glances. Even the usually emotionless Syl seemed surprised. Cora explained the meaning. This classification recognizes that humans are not naturally aggressive. They do not seek conflict. They prefer cooperation and friendship. She paused. However, when threatened, their potential for violence equals or exceeds that of any combat-rated species in our records. She set the document down on her podium. New protocols have been established for all interactions with human populations. They are as follows. Human communities are never to be cornered or trapped. Human individuals are never to be threatened without extreme caution. In all disputes involving humans, a peaceful resolution must be offered first. Some representatives looked uncomfortable. Others looked relieved. These protocols are not restrictions on humans, Cora added. They are protections for everyone else. They exist because we have learned what happens when humans feel they have no choice but to fight. She turned to face the human delegation directly. Captain Tay, on behalf of the Galactic Union, I offer you a formal apology. We underestimated your people. We dismissed your warnings. We placed you in the most dangerous positions on our stations, believing you could not protect yourselves. Her silver eyes were soft with regret. We were fools. Tay stood and bowed respectfully. We accept your apology, Elder, and we offer one of our own. We hid what we were from you. We let you believe a convenient lie. Perhaps if we had been more honest from the beginning, the attack might have ended differently. Perhaps, Cora agreed. But I think I understand why you hid. You wanted peace. You knew that if we saw you as warriors, we might never see you as friends. Una spoke up. We still want peace, Elder. We still want friendship. Nothing that happened has changed that. I know, Cora said. And that is what makes your species truly remarkable. You have every reason to hate us for how we treated you, but you choose forgiveness instead. The ceremony continued with more speeches and formal statements. The Keth officially welcomed humans into their warrior traditions. The Mora offered to teach humans their mental techniques, now that they understood the true nature of human minds. The Sil proposed joint engineering projects, curious to see what humans could create when given proper resources. When it was all over, the delegates filed out of the chamber. But the humans stayed behind for a moment, gathering in a small circle. Hana looked around at her friends. So what now? We're not non-combatants anymore. What does that mean for us? Wu shrugged. Same thing as before, I think. We do our jobs. We help where we can. We watch and learn and prepare. Jin smiled slightly. And if someone tries to hurt our friends again, then we stop them, Minji said quietly. Just like we did before. Hyan nodded. The galaxy knows what we are now. Maybe that will make things easier. Maybe it will make things harder. Either way, we adapt. Nari, the youngest of them all, spoke last. I think they're scared of us now. I saw it in their eyes during the ceremony. They look at us differently. Tay considered her words. Fear is not always bad, Nari. Sometimes fear keeps people honest. Sometimes it prevents fights before they start. He looked at each member of his team. But we must be careful. Fear can also breed hatred. We must show them, over time, that they have nothing to fear from us. Unless they give us a reason, Una added. Unless they give us a reason, Tay agreed. They walked out of the chamber together, into the bright corridors of Harmony Ring. Aliens of every shape and size passed them. And now those aliens looked at the humans with new eyes. Some nodded with respect. Others stepped aside to let them pass. A few even bowed. The humans accepted these gestures gracefully, without arrogance or pride. They were still the same people they had been before the attack. They still smiled and helped and worked hard. They still made jokes and shared meals and formed friendships across species lines. But something had changed beneath the surface. The galaxy knew the truth now. The small, fragile creatures with short lives and weak bodies were not helpless prey. They were something far more dangerous. They were survivors who had clawed their way up from mud and blood across millions of years. They were hunters who had learned to wear the masks of farmers and healers. They were humans. In his quarters that night, Captain Tay sat alone at his desk. Before him was a computer screen showing a single file, Protocol 7. He read through it one more time, checking every detail. Then he closed the file and locked it away. For now, the protocol could sleep. The emergency was over. Peace had returned to Harmony Ring, but the file would always be there, waiting in the darkness, ready for the day when humans might need it again. Because Tay knew something that the rest of the galaxy was only beginning to understand. Humans did not conquer through strength or speed or natural weapons. They conquered through patience, through planning, through the absolute refusal to give up. No matter how bad things got, other species might be bigger or faster or stronger, but humans would still be standing long after those species had fallen. They would adapt and survive and rebuild, again and again, until the end of time itself. That was the true gift of humanity. Not violence, not war. Persistence. The stars outside his window burned cold and bright. Somewhere out there, other threats were gathering. Other enemies were making plans. The galaxy was vast and full of dangers that no one had yet imagined, but the humans would be ready. They always were. Tay turned off his screen and went to sleep. Tomorrow there would be more work to do, more friends to make, more bridges to build. The great project of human survival continued, one day at a time, and somewhere in the darkness of space, the word was spreading. A warning passed from ship to ship, from station to station, from world to world that do not threaten the humans. Do not corner them. Do not make them afraid, because the small creatures with soft skin and short lives had proven something that the galaxy would never forget. They were not prey. They never had been. The shuttle doors opened with a soft hiss, and Kang Taiho stepped onto Station Orient 7 for the first time. The air smelled strange, like metal and something sweet he could not name. Around him, hundreds of alien cadets moved through the massive arrival hall. Some had scales. Some had 4 arms. Some towered 3 meters tall. And all of them looked at Taiho like he was something small and unimportant. He was 19 years old. He had trained for 3 years on Earth to earn his place at the Galactic Coalition Academy. He had beaten thousands of other candidates. But here, none of that mattered. Here, he was just another human. A soft skin. A latecomer to the stars. Taiho pulled his bag higher on his shoulder and walked forward. He kept his eyes straight ahead and his face calm. His father had taught him that. Never show them you are afraid. Never show them you are hurt. Walk like you belong, even when they tell you that you do not. The Academy was the most respected military training center in the known galaxy. Every species sent their best young soldiers here. For 15 years, humans had been part of the coalition, but they were still seen as children. Earth had only discovered faster than light travel 2 decades ago. Other species had been sailing between stars for thousands of years. Taiho found his assigned quarters in the human section. It was a small room at the end of a long gray corridor. The walls were thin. The bed was hard. The window looked out at a waste processing unit. He had read that other species had quarters with views of the nebula. Humans did not get those rooms. He unpacked his few belongings. A photo of his family. A small stone from the river near his childhood home. His training clothes, worn soft from years of use. He placed the photo on the small desk and looked at it for a long moment. His parents. His younger sister, Jisoo, with her bright smile and dreams of joining the space program someday. He had come here for them. For all of them. A knock came at his door. Taeho opened it to find a young woman with short black hair and sharp eyes. She wore the same gray cadet uniform as him, but hers had a senior marking on the sleeve. "You are the new one," she said. It was not a question. "I am Baysora. I am in my 3rd year. Come, I will show you where to eat before you get lost and end up in Velthari territory." Taiho followed her without argument. Sora walked fast and talked faster. She told him which corridors to avoid, which instructors were fair, and which species would cause him trouble. "The Velthari are the worst," she said as they entered the mess hall. "They have bone armor that grows from their bodies. They think it makes them better than everyone else. Maybe it does, but it also makes them cruel." The mess hall was enormous. Thousands of cadets sat at long tables, eating foods that Taiho could not recognize. The noise was overwhelming. Clicks, growls, whistles, and languages that his translator could barely process. Sor led him to a small table in the corner. A few other humans sat there, eating quietly. They looked tired. Some had bruises on their faces. "Training accidents," Sora said, noticing his gaze. "That is what the reports always say. But we know the truth. The Velthari have sent 2 of our cadets home this year alone. One cannot walk anymore. The other cannot remember his own name." Taiho sat down. His appetite was gone, but he forced himself to eat. He would need his strength. "There is one Velthari you must watch for," Sora continued. "His name is Renok. His father is a general. He thinks humans are insects. He thinks we should never have been allowed into the coalition." As if summoned by his name, the mess hall grew quiet. Taiho looked up and saw a group of Velthari entering. They were tall and broad, their gray skin covered in plates of white bone that looked like natural armor. They moved like they owned a station. Maybe they did. At the front was one who stood taller than the others. His bone plates were thicker, his shoulders wider. His eyes scanned the room with cold amusement. When they passed over the human table, his mouth twisted into something that might have been a smile. Renoke. The Velthari took a table in the center of the hall. Other species made room for them without being asked. Taiho watched them for a moment, then returned to his food. He would not give them the satisfaction of his fear. After the meal, Sora took him to meet Lieutenant Yoon Hinwoo, the only human instructor at the academy. Hyunwoo was older, maybe 40, with gray in his temples and scars on his hands. He had been a soldier before he was a teacher. That much was clear from the way he stood. "So you are the new cadet," Hyunwoo said. His voice was calm but heavy. "You scored well on your entrance exams. Strategy and technical skills. But your combat ratings are average." "Yes, sir," Taiho said. Hyunwoo studied him for a long moment. "The aliens here measure worth by what they can see. Armor, claws, size. They have never seen what humans are capable of." "Not truly." He paused. "Keep your head down. Learn everything you can. And when the time comes, show them what Earth produces." Taiho nodded. He understood. He spent the rest of the day learning the layout of the academy. The training halls, the simulation rooms, the medical bay, which he hoped he would not need. Everywhere he went, alien eyes followed him. Some were curious. Most were dismissive. A few were openly hostile. As evening came, Taiho was walking back to his quarters when he heard a crash. He turned a corner and saw a young human girl on the ground. Her bag had spilled open, her belongings scattered across the floor. Standing over her was Renok. "Watch where you walk, Softskin," Renok said. He had not moved out of her way. He had walked through her. The girl, Kim Nari, scrambled to collect her things. Her hands were shaking. Other cadets walked past without stopping. No one helped. Taiho moved forward. He knelt down and helped Nari gather her belongings. He did not look at Renok. He did not need to. "Another soft skin," Renok said. His voice was full of amusement. "How nice." You can be weak together. Taiho stood and offered Nari her bag. She took it with trembling hands and hurried away. Only then did Taiho look at Ren OK. The Velthary was watching him with new interest. His bone-plated face showed no emotion, but his eyes were calculating, measuring. I will remember you, Renek said softly. Taiho said nothing. He turned and walked away, his heart pounding but his face perfectly still. Behind him, he heard Renek laugh. The hunt had begun.